Hey everyone, welcome to the show. Today we have Paul McNamee on. Paul, welcome.
Thanks, Will.
So I'm excited to have this conversation. There's a lot of notes and prep I did for this, and there were some listener questions from Instagram and Twitter, which I know you've responded to a few of them already. But a lot of the questions people asked um, through Instagram and Twitter were around how Sue adjust to playing with different partners. So I wanted to kind of start with a little bit of a thought experiment. So let's say the US Open starts tomorrow, or Australian Open, Wimbledon, whatever it is. And
Sure.
let's say she decides to play with me. Let's say
Yeah,
I'm a female and I'm actually good enough, which I'm not. But let's say she decides to play with
sure,
me, and
sure,
you have to create a game plan for us.
sure, sure.
One of the things you said on Twitter is you would ask a lot of questions. Let's just kind of role play it and go through it. What would you ask me? How do we create this
Well,
game plan?
well, this in fact happened a year ago at Roland Garros at the French Open when Sue-wei didn't have a partner and was just coming back after a year and a half out of the game and had no ranking whatsoever, but had a protected ranking, and she didn't have a doubles partner, and so she said, with 5 minutes to go in the silence, she said, "Look, there's a Chinese girl. I've never seen her play. Will I sign up with her?" I said, "Is she tall? Do you think she can serve?" She said, "Yeah, she's tall." So I said, "Well, that'll work. Just sign up with her, and I'll set up the game plan for you guys." It was Gina Wang, and they're unseeded, never played together before, and they won the French Open. So
Mhm.
that actually happened just over a year ago.
Okay. So,
And obviously, I had to meet the girl, the lady, and then talk about what an honest conversation about his strengths, knowing that what Suwei would be looking for. Obviously, Suwei hasn't got the biggest serve in the world, so we prefer to play with someone who serves okay. After that, which side you play, which role they play, because I'm very big on the two players in a team having a role, and I'm very open-minded, especially coaching Sue Wei, who can be dominant either at the back of the court or at the front of the court. So she's either the queen at the baseline or the queen at the net. So I'm trying to find out from Gina which queen's role she's going to play, and then Sue Wei will work around it and set it up. So I'm very big on not having dominance on the left or right sides, but dominance in the forecourt and the backcourt, like the offense and the defense in American football. I'm very big on that.
hmm, okay. So in this case, Sue is the dominant player in the front of the court, I
She
assume.
was with Gina, yeah, she was, and
Yeah.
Gina, because Gina hits the ball big. She's a
Hmm.
pretty good singles player too. She's gone top
Right.
30 in singles and hits the ball big, and that's fine. That's really all we were looking for. And then um, after that, once you've got the setup, you've got to play your role. It doesn't matter that you might be able to do other things well. You need to play your role on a doubles court and knowing what that is. So you've kind of got to act. It's like being in a Hollywood movie. That's your role in this particular set or scene. And Sue Wei's role varies on a partner. Her role with Gina was completely different to a role when she won Wimbledon a few weeks later with Barbara Strycova. I mean, it was completely the
Hmm.
opposite role that Sue Wei played. She went from the queen at the net to the queen of the baseline. So you do your setup based on the complementary strengths of the players. That's the primary ingredient to a good successful doubles team. Then, of course, you got to look at the opponents, of course. But the first things first is get your own act together, get your own roles right.
Hmm. How do you balance that? And has this changed for you, having a baseliner and then a net player, whereas it used to be the case, and when you played, for example, everybody was all about serve and volley, get two to the
Yeah,
net.
sure,
How
sure.
has that changed for you over the years, and how do you kind of balance that
Yeah, look,
together?
it is a change in mindset, and I guess it was an embarrassing situation involved in the first Wimbledon final Suwei played in 2013 with Peng Shuai when they played Ash Barty and Casey Delacroix, and Peng Shuai is one of the best baseline players in the world. I mean, she could just she could fire backhands like a machine gun from the back of the court. So, you know, you just put Peng Shuai there. She's just going to fire backhands like you can't believe. And then Su-wei could sort of clean up at the net. So the thing was we had an issue holding Su-wei because Peng wasn't the greatest volleyer and Su-wei was one of the greatest serves. So that was always going to be the game that was a problem. So we kind of wanted Peng Shuai to be back when Su-wei was serving. And then the thing was that Barty and Delac were back as well. And look, our girls won that final in straight sets, and you know they beat two Australians, which wasn't popular in Australia. Of coaching against the Aussies, but the thing is, and I got back and Pat Cash, and even Frank Sedgman, the legendary Frank Sedgman, is still alive. You know, the living legend we call him. He won Wimbledon back in the 50s. They were saying before, how embarrassing was that? You're coaching two girls who are at the baseline, and there were four women playing at the baseline on Wimbledon centre court in a final. You know, and you know, it's a little embarrassing. I said, well, can you tell me what you do when your player can't really serve that big and a partner can't volley that well? You just tell me how to set it up. You know, I'm just going with what I think can win here. Okay.
Yeah.
So you've got to adjust according to the strengths of your own team, and as I said, that can vary because you know Su-wei has played in different roles, and that's why she's one of the doubles greats because she can actually play at both ends of the court really well, and we can complement her with whoever it really doesn't matter who she plays with. And in the end of the day, in doubles, there's an optimal setup with whoever you're playing with. If I'm playing with you, we've got an optimal setup. If I'm playing with Su-wei and Mix, there's an optimal setup. There's always an optimal setup. So the key of a coach is to find that setup and then marry that into the strengths and weaknesses of your opponent, and really hone in on the one thing in your opponent's games that's going to give you trouble. What's the one thing? What's the biggest threat to you winning this match? And how do you remove that as a factor from the match? I'm very big on that.
So it sounds like you're prioritizing, as far as game planning against opponents, it sounds like you're prioritizing removing the opponent's biggest strength rather than attacking their biggest weakness. Is that right?
Absolutely. Oh,
okay.
Look, don't worry. Look, you attack weaknesses, but in the end, you know, you will lose because of someone's weapon. I mean, the biggest weapon on the court wins. I mean, that's the reality. So you want your weapons to be the key to the match and not your opponent's weapons. And because you can't overdo it, you know, I like to pick on the number one thing of the opponent. It could be, you know, the cross-court return, so you've got to play eye to stop that happening, or it could be someone's crossing a lot, serial crosser, you know, someone like Townsend who does that very well. I mean, how do you take that out of the match? So I'm very big on having enormous respect and knowing that there are other things that their opponents can hurt you with. But if you take out the one thing that they tend to use to dominate in a match, you're well on the way to winning the match.
How does somebody, so for somebody listening who's not a professional player, but a club level player, how do they go about finding the biggest strength? One problem I see with a lot of players at the club level is that they'll see their opponent hit some huge forehand that I know is going to go in 50% of the time, but they see it as a big shot and they're like, oh, we don't want to hit them a forehand. How do you go about finding that strength?
Yeah, players bluff. I mean, I can tell in the hit up, you know, you can tell in the warm up normally what their strengths and weaknesses. The other thing is, look, the biggest shot in the game is a king forehand, right? I mean, Rafa's forehand is the greatest shot in the history of the sport. There's no question about it. And in Alcaraz, he's not hitting it quite as well right now, but for a while he had the biggest right-hand forehand. I mean, even though he won Roland Garros, he played actually better last year, in my opinion. But, you know, if you want to know if someone's got a big forehand, in the first game, hit a ball down the middle. If they take that on the backhand and not on the forehand, you already know what's happening here. They've obviously got a better backhand because no one with a big forehand will ever not take that mid-court ball on the backhand side if they can hit a forehand. So you find out that information very quickly because sometimes you're not sure whether your opponent's got a better backhand or a forehand. Just go down the middle and see what they do. No player in the history of the game will not take a forehand if they've got a big forehand. So you've already got that information. So now you know on big points, you want to find their forehand. The other thing is that players bluff. They want you to think you've got their big forehand. So what they do is they rip a couple in the match to try and scare you. It's a bluff. I mean, you've got to be aware of the bluff. And, I learned that very early in my career that, the bluff is a very powerful thing. So you've got to be aware that players are trying to bluff you all the time. I find that players in the warm-up tend to practice their weakness because they're trying to get that right before the match. So if a player is sort of focusing on one thing in the warm-up, that's very important information. So I'm looking for that information before I go to a match, if you're a club player. But in club tennis, it's more important in doubles to maximize your strengths and minimize your weaknesses as a team. In singles, there's no place to hide. If you've got a weak backhand, they're going to find it. In doubles, if you've got a weak backhand, you hit the backhand return and they never see it again. Okay? They never see it again. That's the only backhand they'll ever see.
That's how I play.
Yeah, well, and I hope you play on the outside.
I do.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
Great.
I just run around my backhand every time.
Exactly. And second serve, they're never going to see your backhand. And look, it's not a bad way to play. I mean, it got me to number one in the world, so it kind of works okay,
yeah. Exactly. So I wanted to ask a question. So on your Wikipedia page, it says that you're the only pro player to ever switch from a one to a two-hander on the pro tour. Is that still true? And why did you do that? And how did you do that?
Yeah, look, it's only true. It is true. And there's a young Aussie, Matt Dellavedova, who's late 20s, who's trying to do it right now. But it's a very hard thing to do. I love watching Bjorn Borg play, and I saw the final of when Borg played Vilas in the final of Nice, and they're ripping balls high over the net with topspin and not missing. I mean, that was not the way the game was played. The game was played like Connors or John Newcombe when I grew up, serve and volley, etc., etc. So I was fascinated by these Europeans and South Americans hitting so much topspin, which wasn't the case when I grew up in Australia on grass in particular. So I switched to a Western forehand the next day after I saw those guys. I changed my grip to the Western forehand grip. Obviously it was horrible for a couple of weeks, then it kicked in. Mm-hmm. And then finally, I was in a conversation with Chris Lewis from New Zealand, who made the final of Wimbledon 1 year in singles. Pretty good result, lost to McEnroe, and another friend, Dave Carter Space from Australia. And we were just talking in our condo in Florida, and we were just talking about what we regretted in the sport. And I said, look, I really regret I didn't have a two-handed backhand because, my one-hand slice is so bad. And, and I played golf left-handed. I wish I maybe had it. And Space said, Dave Carter, he said, well, why don't you switch? And Chris Lewis was just horrified, my friend, because he said, he knew I was a little bit crazy. He said, don't even think about that. Don't even consider it. That's the stupidest thing I've ever heard. So, but, I did think about it. And after Peter McNamara and I, the late Peter McNamara, a great guy, and I, we won our first ATP doubles tournaments in Nice and Cairo. I made the decision flying back to Florida to Mr. Hopman's tennis academy at Bardmore in Florida to become Saddlebrook. I decided to switch. So I said, you know what, I'm going to go all in. And I said, from that moment, I'll never hit another one-handed backhand again. If it doesn't work, I'll quit the game, go back. I had a science degree. I finished law school. I've got to be better than the 90th best, lawyer. I mean, I was ranked top 100, which is decent, but I knew I was never going any higher. So I decided to go all in, and I knew if I only, didn't go all in, that I'd under pressure, I'd go back to one-handed backhand. So I decided to go all in, copied Bjorn's, wasn't as good, but it was pretty decent. And ended up, going top 25 singles and number one in the world in doubles. And, it kind of worked out, right?
Yeah, I'd say so.
Yeah.
So back to Hsieh, I'm curious how much you coach technique with her versus strategy and then the mental side, because her technique is so unusual.
Yeah. Well, her late father gave her the technique, which is two hands on both sides. And her brothers and sisters play the same way. Her younger sister's on the tour a little bit. She's two hands both sides, and her other brother Tommy, who's with us a lot, he's two hands both sides. And her another younger brother who won some doubles Grand Slams in juniors, he was two hands both sides, but he switched to a one-hander on the forehand side. So Hsieh's father just, I don't know, he wasn't a player or anything. He just believed in that. So and Su-wei, I mean, they took up tennis at a very young age where it was hard to lift the racket. They didn't have the light rackets back then. So she plays two hands both sides. It was one of the questions we got on Twitter was that, she's got two-handed backhands. In fact, they're two-handed forehands because she switches grips on every shot. Can you imagine your whole career having to change grips on two hands on every ball? Because most two-handers on both sides, like Jean Mayer and, who was in my era, got to four in the world. Sandy Mayer was a good player too, his brother. But Jean Mayer, I mean, they play cross-handed on one side. They don't change grips on every ball. She changes grips on every single ball, which is unbelievable. And
Yeah.
so no, we never talk about technique because it's unique. But when I saw her the first time, I thought, she could end up with, I thought, with the best volley in the world. I mean, this in women's tennis. And I said that, and she thought I was crazy to imagine that. But she has absolutely got the best finishing volleys in the world. There's no doubt about it.
Mm-hmm. What did you see that made you think that?
Well, just this unique talent. I mean, she could redirect balls on both sides. I mean, I saw her play at Hopman
Mm-hmm.
Cup, which I started with Charlie Pankin and Pat Cash, and she, Dinara Safina was number 3 in the world and became number 1 in the world a few weeks later at the Australian Open. She led a 7-5-1 on Dinara Safina, Murat's sister, who went to number 1, and Murat and Dinara Safina, Murat Safin and Dinara Safina are the only sisters in the history of tennis to both be ranked number 1 in the world. And I could just see the talent she had. But she actually qualified and got to the 4th round of the Australian Open that year, Su-wei, and I didn't see her again for another nearly 2 years. And I ran into her and I said, I just said, oh, how come you ranked 300 and you made the round of 16 Australian Open? What happened? She goes, oh, I didn't know how to enter tournaments, and no one helped me, and I didn't play any tournaments for over a year. I didn't know how to enter, and it was a massive problem that Chinese players had because at WTA everything was in English, nothing was in other languages, and players like Su-wei, who were just from modest family with no support, and from Taiwan, not from China, she had no way of navigating her way onto the tour. So she was a player with talent that was never going to make a dime, basically. I mean, she was struggling, and so just I recognised the talent. I thought we'll give it a shot. So
Hmm. So she didn't even like she had the talent, she wasn't hurt, and she just didn't know how to enter a WTA
didn't know
tournament.
how to play, how to enter tournaments, where to go, how to do anything. She had for about a year. She completely wasted her round of 16 singles at the Australian Open. It got
Uh,
wasted completely.
that is crazy.
No, yeah,
Um,
I know.
so one of the things people love about her is her funny personality and off court or post match interviews and things like that. And last year, she seems like very carefree at times. And last year, she wins Roland Garros, wins Wimbledon with a different partner. And I'm sitting there in like August, September, October, thinking like, okay, at some point she's going to choose a partner and like make the WTA finals. Is that something that even crossed her mind? It seemed like she only had to play maybe one more tournament with either Barbara or Gina. Is that something she even thinks about or?
Well, the thing, yeah, it was tricky because she won. Oh, look, it was tricky because
Yeah.
Barbara had decided, that it was going to be her last year, and she had a baby and going to have another one, and then Barbara
Hmm.
wanted to play Wimbledon in the US because with the protected ranking, you're only allowed to play 2 Grand Slams. I mean, so Barbara was saying to me, Paul, we need to play Wimbledon in the US Open because I'm going to retire at the US Open, and so I don't want Stu Wade to play the French because we can only play 2. And I said, but Barbara, by the time the US Open comes around, you guys, you'll be in the main draw. You won't be outside the ranking cutoff. You're only going to win a few matches. No, we can't take the risk. So Barbara decided that she shouldn't take the risk
Hmm.
of not having a ranking to be in the main draw, if you can believe it. And then Stu had the issue then with Roland Garros that she lives in Paris with her partner is French and they live in Paris. And I said, so wait, you've got to play your home Grand Slam. You can't not, it's home in inverted commas because she's not French, but she lives in Paris.
Sure.
So that's why at the last minute she didn't have a partner because Barbara decided not to play the French because she wanted to keep her protected ranking for Wimbledon, the US Open. And of course, as it turned out, Sue wins the French, and then she and Barbara play Wimbledon and win it. So obviously there was no ranking issue for the US Open. But Barbara had
Right.
already decided it was her last year, so she was retiring the US Open. So that was it. And then Gina, so it kind of all got unglued, and then Australia, Sue didn't really have a partner, and then Elise had split up with Storm Hunter, Elise Mertens, so they end up playing Australia and winning it, of course. But
Yeah.
yeah, so it's just been a
Yeah.
a big
Oh,
a big a big change. But there's always at the end of the day, you can make it work if you, as I said, if you've got a decent partner.
yeah. Um, so one of the questions on Twitter was about pre-match routines. Talk a little bit about how you prepare Sue for a match. Are there any unique kind of things she does pre-match? Talk a little bit
Well,
about that.
Well, obviously, I was with singles for a long while. I mean, I've been helping her on and off for 12 years now. So singles was important, but it's
Hmm.
doubles. She's in the twilight of her career, and again, the scouting of the opponents is super important. So
Hmm.
and the team aspect because her partner's always got a coach as well. So you've got a risk of too many chiefs in the kitchen, too many chefs in the kitchen. So
Sure.
I'm very big on the team. The team makes a collective decision about what the setup is, and the girl's opinion is very important. The other coach is very important. Stuart's partner Fred, who's got a lot of knowledge, it's important. So I tend to do the scouting, and then I'll bring that to the table, and I'll always meet with the coach of before the tournament of Suez partner and say, look, one of us has to be the leader here because the worst thing we can have is different opinions going to the team, both before the match and during the match. So we need to have a central point of communication that's absolutely vital because if they get two messages that are potentially different, that's a disaster. So we run through the dynamics of what being a successful team is and having buy-in from everybody on the team. So I'll do homework and scouting on the opponents. Perhaps Sue's partners coach will do the same thing. We always meet one-on-one on the morning of a doubles match, the other coach and myself. In Elise's case, it's Chris, who's a great guy, and we meet and I'll give my input on what I think we need to watch for in terms of the threat and what our tactics need to be. He'll give his input. We agree about that. Then we go to both Sue and Elise together before they warm up for the match, before their practice session, say, this is the strategy we believe is right. What do you guys think? What's your input as well? So that they may adjust something because they know the girls maybe better than we do. So we have a joint, team decision about the way we're going to set up, and they practice that. It might be I formations we have to try, or returning a certain way against I formation, or where they're going to serve, where they're going to stand on first and second serve. We do those particular setup routines for that match, just for that match, and make sure we cover that in the warm up. And then they're ready to go. And then during the match, I mean, during the match has changed dramatically, Will, because you know, just over a year ago. I mean, before Sue came back, you couldn't coach like you do now. I mean, people were doing
Yeah.
some signals and things, but you couldn't go. Now you can have an open dialogue. I mean, it's unbelievable the input that you can have. Like in the final of Roland Garros, when we're playing against Taylor Townsend and Layla Fernandez. I mean, the amount of input you can give. I mean, this is a match they were losing, a set well down, a set and down in the second. So being
Hmm.
able as a coach to influence that is an enormous change from before. I'm not saying it's good or bad. I'm just saying it's an enormous change that every doubles team is able to access now. And it's like you've got three people on the team. You've got the two players and a coach. So, if you can get 3-on-2, that's great because some teams don't take it quite as seriously, perhaps, especially singles players playing doubles. So you've got to take every advantage you get, and it's an enormous change. One journalist said to me, "Well, what's it like when I'm able to coach and double?" I said, "Well, I felt like we were cheating. That's what it felt like." Yeah.
Wow. But how do you go about scouting an opponent? Do you use a lot of video and analytics, or do you like to go watch the matches live? I know a lot of the
And
teams you've probably seen before, so there's that as
analytics
well.
analytics are limited because
Mm,
everyone can hit the ball well, but can you do it on break point? Where are they serving on a big point? What are they going to do on
mhm.
a big point? The big points. I mean, has even what Roger Federer said at was it the Dartmouth
Yeah,
University
one of the
graduate?
graduation
Yeah,
speech.
he
Yeah.
said I only won 54% of the points in my career. Well, what use of analytics on that? I mean,
Yeah.
what you've got to know is where was like Novak says he knows where Roger's serving on a big point. Let's say, he
Hmm.
tends to go to my forehand on big points, etc., etc. You've got to know what's going on in the big points. So I definitely scout using video, but I if it's at all I always watch a minimum one set of their opponent's previous match. I mean, I would just be up in the crowd back there somewhere. No one will even know I'm there. I'm just
Yeah.
assiduously taking notes of the opponents. Just up in Indian Wells was tough because the courts were full for doubles. I mean, my goodness,
They
I had
were,
trouble
yeah.
finding I had trouble finding a seat to scout
Yeah.
the opponents, right? But I'm always there the match before. I watch a set. I don't watch too much. A set will give me all the information that I need to know what's going on and what to look for and what's happening on the pressure points, and um, that's enough. And you can over strategize and get over technical. I'm just looking for the one thing that's gonna hurt us because I pretty much know how they play. If they're players that you had the hardest match to coach in is the first round match because you can't scout the match before. After
Mm,
that, it's easy, very
yeah.
easy. The first round's always tough, so you've got to go to the videos or, if necessary, to YouTube because everybody's on YouTube and you just do the fast forwards. I mean, in YouTube, I'm often there just having a look at the opponents and what they're doing. You know, are they on the right sides? I had that with Samsonova when she was playing with. She was playing. I found her really dangerous when she was playing on the forehand side in doubles, and then we were going into a match at the Australian Open, and then I was saying, and she'd been playing backhand with oh, excuse me, I can't remember who she was playing with,
Let me see if I can
and I
find
thought,
it.
oh, that's got what's that?
I'm gonna see if I can
It,
find it for you.
anyway, she played Adelaide and played ad side, and I thought that's good because it's taken away something I was worried about. And then so I did the setup. We did the setup with the girls with Hsieh and Elise, and I said, it's just assuming Samsonov is playing ad side, right? Because she played there in the warm up tournament there. Because I'm a bit more worried about her on juice side, right? For
Hmm.
certain reasons, we'd played her before and had to navigate against that. So we go to the court in the match. Guess what? She's back on the juice. She's on the
Yeah.
juice side. So the setup we did, and we're getting beaten up. The first set. So I had to quickly get into coaching mode and change the setup because she was on a side opposite to what we set up for. So you've got to take that into consideration.
Yeah.
Actually, one of your Twitter followers asked about Suwei playing with Elise, the fact that we thought Elise should be playing forehand because she won those two US Opens with
Hmm.
Sabalenka on the forehands on the juice side. So we put Suwei can play both sides. Um, we had Suwei and Ad, and they weren't winning matches, and so I was just talking to Elise before Wimbledon. This is back in 2021 when they won. I said to Elise, I said, you prefer forehand, don't you? You prefer juice, right? Because with Sabalenka you won the two sets. Yeah, I know we won the two slams there, but actually I prefer playing on the ad side. I said, what? What? I said, okay, let's change. I said, here's the deal. This is the deal. First set at Wimbledon in the first round, you play ad. Sue go back to juice where she's really comfortable. And see what happens. If you win, if you lose the first set, we're switching back because that's the way you've been playing. Going into
Yeah.
Wimbledon, we'll switch back. But if you win the first set, we're staying that way. They won the whole tournament. We switch because you can do that in doubles. Remember in club tennis too, you can switch after a set. You can switch
Yeah.
sides if you want. And
Right.
obviously you want the stronger server serving first. And he said there are basic rules for for doubles for club players, if we go, have the strongest server serving first. If it's a tournament you want to win, and pick the right side, and also never put a left-hander serving in the sun, never, ever, 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 ever. And people go, well, how do you control that? And it's amazing how few people know how you can control it so that the best server serves at the right end, serving first in the set. I mean, most people can't figure that out. If you've got a good server and she wants to serve, let's say, not with the sun, how do you orchestrate that? So she serves first, not necessarily in the first game, but serves first in the team at the right end, which means when, let's say, she's serving for the set or he's serving for the set, you're at the right end. And most people can't figure that out.
What's the answer here? Do you defer if you win the toss?
Yes,
Okay.
yes, you defer. That's the only way you can do it. But most people don't know you can defer.
Oh, right.
Most people,
Yeah.
they don't know you can defer. See, losing the toss is an advantage in this sense because whichever way they choose, you get to do what you want. But winning the toss is a problem. If you serve, you can get put down the wrong end. You receive, you get put down the wrong end. You pick the end. They can pick the wrong thing for you, etc., etc. So deferring is always the way. If you've got, and in someone like Su-wei's case, it's where she's generally obviously with someone who's got a bigger serve, and let's say we want to go that way, they often defer.
So do you think
I'm not giving anyway any secret here because deferring it doesn't help their opponents to know that doesn't help them. So that's why I can say this openly to you. I'm not giving away inside information. But for any club team, if you've got a big server and a weaker server, defer.
Yeah. So do you think it is, I guess, better to make sure your stronger server serves first, even if it means you start out returning?
Yeah,
Then
hello. In a 6-4 set, who serves 3 times? Who serves twice?
right.
In a 6-3 or a 6-4 set, which is common, you want the better server serving 3 times, not twice. So it's absolutely an advantage. That's a 50% advantage.
What if the two servers, like the gap in the two servers isn't that much? Would you rather serve first as a team regardless of the server? Are there scenarios? I'm just trying to think if there's like scenarios where you choose serve if you win the
Yes,
toss.
scoreboard pressure is always good. Scoreboard pressure is good. In men's doubles, believe it or not, I like to be down the right end in the tiebreak. I mean, if it's windy, I'd rather be with the wind in the tiebreak because you've got 6 points with the wind before you change sides. I'd rather be up 4-2 than down 4-2 or 5-1 because of the scoreboard pressure. So I would pick a side in men's doubles based on the end if it's windy. I mean, these are the subtle. Look, I can't go through every permutation.
Yeah. There's a lot of.
But these things matter. These things really matter. Yeah, and so if they're serving relatively the same, that's true. But generally, who can serve better looking at the sun? Who serves better against the wind or with the wind? They're the things you want to have in your setup. Be ready for. Be ready for. So you want to always make sure you never make a fatal error of having a left-handed serve.
Yeah,
with the sun. I mean, if the left hand has got the good serve, you definitely got to defer.
Yeah, there's just so much to consider. Okay, so I know
There's
you got to run.
No. Oh, no. I mean, you've got another 10 or 15 minutes, no problem. But yeah.
So one question I have to ask is about the strings. I've heard this story before. Su-wei is hitting her string breaks. She doesn't even know what happened. Tell us, what does she do now for strings? How often is she restringing her racket? And share that story as well if you can.
Well, yeah, she was playing Pavlyuchenko in Eastbourne, and Su-wei missed a ball by 1.5 meters. She never misses by that much. I mean, it's on grass, but she normally misses by centimeters. I mean, that's a miss for Su-wei. A meter, something's wrong. Next rally, misses by 1.5 meters again. What's going on? Something wrong. Third point in a row, same thing. There's something wrong here. I looked at her racket. She was playing with broken strings. I mean, I didn't think of it, you know, and she didn't know herself. She's playing with broken strings and didn't know it. And the thing was, she hadn't broken a string. I'd been working with her for 3 years. She'd never broken a string. 3 years. She's only broken 2 strings in the 12 years I've worked with her.
So what year was this?
Oh, can't remember. Can't remember. It's back in probably 15, 16, something like that. Yeah.
Okay.
And she hasn't broken a string. She just never breaks strings. So she strings the rackets, you know, maybe every month she'll change
Okay.
strings, but it's not because of a broken string.
Yeah.
So
It just gets loose.
it just
That's
gets
so
a little bit,
funny.
yeah, but yeah, she doesn't worry too much about that. And also the speed of the court makes no difference. I mean, at the time, you know, in Melbourne, I had the synthetic grass court, you know, at our home, and she was sometimes come and practice there, and she's playing singles at the Australian Open, and she said, "Oh, can I come and warm up at your house?" I said, "No, of course not. It's synthetic grass. It's not the same surface as Australian Open, which is hardcore, right?" She said, "I don't notice the difference. It's all the same to me. The court, I don't notice any difference in the courts ever." So I'm just happy to warm up there. She doesn't, between clay, grass, hardcourt, made no difference to her. The
It's
first
so funny.
ball comes the first ball comes out of the middle of the racket, whatever court she's playing on. It doesn't matter. She can play indoors on wood, right?
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
know, like at the Armory in New York. Where I was on a train in New York City, one of the train that and I said to my wife, I said, "Look, that guy's standing over there he won Wimbledon, that guy. He's just standing there with he had this coat and like a hood." And I said, "That guy won Wimbledon." I said, "Hey Dick, hey Dick, hey Dick." You know, he didn't want to recognize me on the underground. It was Dick Savitt, right?
Uh-huh.
I think, and I said, "Hey, he said, "Where are you going?" I said, "We're going to the Armory in New York. There was an art exhibition." And he says, "I won the US National Indoors at the Armory in New York, actually, on the wood." He said it was so fast. But Su-wei centers the ball. It doesn't matter what court
Hmm.
it is. Her timing is pure. It's just pure. So there's no one times the ball better than Su-wei. I mean, it's just pure.
Yeah. So I wanted to ask you a question about more kind of the mental side of the game for a second. I saw earlier your tweet about the US Open in golf yesterday about Rory
Yeah.
saying he conceivably hit both putts exactly where he wanted.
Well, he didn't. He
But
didn't say that. He didn't say that. I was
he
suggesting that.
potentially did. Yeah, it's a
Yeah. Correct.
possibility. We don't know.
Correct.
Only he knows. Um,
Correct.
and this is something I feel like announcers in tennis do all the time, where because it's a close match, they'll just attribute the outcome to somebody got nervous or it was the pressure. Um, how do you think about nerves and pressure, and how do you train someone to perform better under pressure?
Well, getting used to it is number one. I mean, my late doubles partner Peter McNamee was a top 10 player, and he, Pat Cash's coach Ian Barclay, Cashy won Wimbledon. People still remember him, terrific player, and his coach was Ian Barclay, and he played against Pat Cash he played against Peter McNamee in a leagues final, and Macca served a game of double faults, and Ian Barclay said, "Well, gee, that guy will never make it." And of course, Macca ended up top 10 and terrific player. And because Macca early on had trouble with pressure, but he was in that situation so many times he got used to it. I could say the same about Edberg and Lendl. I mean, they were great players, but they kind of were a little bit vulnerable under pressure early in their careers until Lendl broke through when Johnny Mack let him off the hook in the final of Roland Garros. I mean, which was a tragedy in my opinion because John should have won the French. But you get used to being in that situation enough. You develop techniques to deal with it, and so all of those players became very, very, very good under pressure. And so familiarity is one thing. The other thing is that the top players win because they dominate the big points. I mean, that's why I say how important the big points are. That you know you play Nadal, if he goes to his forehand, he'll get a forehand on a big point. That's the end of the point. I mean, he'll just dominate with it. matches are generally won by the better players because they can dominate with their weapons on the big points. So the fight in a match is always who's got the ability to use their weapons to dominate the big points. And the better players understand that. So the mental game is about, have I got the wherewithal, the presence to to make sure I get to use my weapon on a big point and dominate the point, and then I take my chances. You're not going to win every big point, but the top players do dominate on the big points. I mean, look at Djokovic in tie breaks. He just doesn't cop up errors. It's just rare.
Mm-hmm.
He's just so good under pressure. So they have techniques to deal with that. Don't ask me to explain what Su-wei's mental outlook would be. She's a free spirit, so you're never really sure. She's just
Mm-hmm.
an amazing free spirit and a special person. And she wouldn't have any particular plan, I don't think.
Yeah. Yeah. It seems like everybody's different. People have to kind of
Everyone's different, yeah.
find
Everyone's
what
different.
works for them.
But the thing is, yeah, and also you don't, I mean, choking is involuntary. I mean, I had this with Martina Navratilova. I mean, I wanted to, I got a phone call from Martina's agent. Martina had, of all the slams, she hadn't won the mixed at Wimbledon, and I got a phone call from my manager, Peter Johnson from IMG, and he said, Martina is interested in playing mixed with you, but she just doesn't play with a guy who chokes. So can you promise you're not going to choke? I said, Peter, I said, how can I promise that? It's involuntary.
Yeah.
I mean, I said, normally I don't, but I'm not going to promise it. I said, what I can promise is, well, I think we've got a really good shot at winning it. So do you want to see how that goes? And so she said, yeah, give it a shot. So we ended up getting through. I was lucky my mum and dad were at Wimbledon that year because they were not there the years I'd won the doubles with Peter McNamee. So we ended up getting through and winning. We had the quarter semi-final back to back on the last day, if you can believe it. After
Wow.
she played the singles and doubles finals the day before. So we ended up winning. We played three super tough 3-set matches on the last day, ended up winning it, which was great. And then the next year, I said, I haven't heard from Martina about defending the mix. And I called Peter Johnson, the manager, and he goes, oh, let me check with Martina. He comes back and he says, look, Martina wants to say that you didn't choke, but there were too many 3-set matches, so she's going to play with Hans Gunther.
uh,
Yeah. Look, unfortunately, Heinz choked that year. They didn't win it, and she asked me the
oh,
next year.
wow.
So,
Wow. She made a mistake there.
well, yeah, but she apologized. The next year, she said, "Look, Paul, yeah, I'm sorry." So that's good. Yeah, I rate Martina highly. She calls me partner. She's a great lady, a great force for good in the world. She's
Mhm.
got her opinions and stands by them. She's done many great things on women's rights and animal rights, and she has a crack politically at the moment, as you'd notice. So she's a special person, Martina, and she's had her health difficulties, which seems like she's getting through. She's just an amazing person, Martina
Mhm.
Navratilova.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, I know you got to run, so just a couple more quick rapid fire questions, and then we'll hop off here. Will you coach at the Olympics? Somebody wanted to know that.
Yeah, Suwei's playing at the Olympics with a young Taiwanese player, Chinese Taipei player, and
Okay.
we'll see how it goes. I'll be doing the setup. Never played with her before, and we'll see. I'm looking forward to that challenge. I I we had a practice session with her at Paris to see how she plays, and so I'm looking forward to helping set that up. And the lady I think's got a future, and was super keen, all ears, wants to learn, and we'll see how it goes. Yeah.
So last question for you, and then I'll let you go. How can we make doubles more popular?
Yeah. Look, I mean, at one point I was CEO and tournament director of the Australian Open, and for 12 years I was, yeah, before Craig Tiley, who's been there longer than I was there, and I did the sign in after the first round singles. Because I spoke to the mandatory player meeting of the Australian Open. I said, look, all you guys are great players. 128 of you here in the main draw of the singles, but you know what? half of you are going to lose first round. 60 people don't realize that 64 out of 128 really great players lose in the first round. Half the
Yeah.
players lose in the first round of a tournament. I said, you've come all this way to Australia. For goodness sake, don't get on the plane and go home. Summer here is beautiful. You're in a beautiful city. Go to the beach, go down the coast. The peninsula's great. Stay and play doubles. Stay and play doubles. And so I didn't do the sign up till after the first round of singles. We had a record participation of singles players in the doubles because it was made up of the guys, nearly all the guys that lost first round singles. That's how you get a better doubles draw. And if you've got there's so many stars lose first round in any tournament, right? Because half the players lose.
Hmm.
So you want to, I just think, you make doubles relevant by giving it more star power, and that's by opening it up to more singles guys, not by using the singles ranking, but respecting the fact that if the singles guys win around the singles, they're not interested in the doubles. So make sure that you've concluded the first round of singles before you do the doubles draw and open it up for the singles rankings. They're starting to look at that on the men's side. They haven't done it on the women's side yet. So I'm a big fan of those changes that delay the doubles draw and allows more singles guys to compete because, if you make the effort to go to a city, don't go there and play one match. I mean, I
Yeah.
want, Will, I want to have the minimum two match rule. If you go to a tournament, you've got to play a minimum of two matches. So if you lose
Mhm.
first round singles, you have to play the doubles.
Yeah. I like that.
You have to play the doubles.
Yeah. I like that.
What's wrong with minimum two matches in a city? Now, if you win your first round singles, you're off the hook. You lose first round, you're playing
Yeah.
doubles.
Yeah. I like that. And let's get a mixed doubles draw at more tournaments too. Maybe they can play
Well,
that.
yeah, well, it's tough to play three events, and even Sue-wei only just started
Sure.
playing mixed because she was playing singles and doubles at the slams. It's tough. It's tough to play all three events. But I think mixed is. I mean, I started the Hopman Cup with Charlie Fanker and Pat Cash,
Hmm.
so I love mixed doubles and what it brings, and it's just a special and unique sport that men and women can play in the same field together.
Yeah.
The Hopman Cup, which has not been played this year, but it was a big part of my history and the whole thing was dedicated to Mr. Hopman. I talked about Hopman's Academy in Florida, a great Australian coach. Um, Mixed doubles wasn't in the Olympics for a long time, even after doubles and singles and doubles were there, but there was no mixed. And what happened was because the IOC said to the ITF, it said, how could you have men and women competing together? It's not possible. How could they actually compete together on the same field of play? And they just didn't believe that it was competitive. So they took they took a video, they took a point of a final of Hopman Cup, which was the most unbelievable point. Ferreira and Kurtzer, were playing against Gimelstob and Chandler Rubin. This unbelievable point. It was just, you've never seen an incredible point like that. It was the
Hmm.
same as when Federer and Bencic played against Zverev and Kerber on that one point that decided the Hopman Cup. You've got this incredible situation where all four players are involved. Everyone's playing on the edge. It's full on, and they showed them the video, and the IOC goes, "Oh my goodness, yeah, they really can. Yeah, we'll have." So that was the key to mixed doubles going into the Olympics, was the fact that
Hmm.
so many people were not aware that it actually works on a tennis court, unlike many other sports where the
Yep.
physicality difference makes it ridiculous. So
Yeah.
mixed is special, yeah.
Yeah, it definitely is. Awesome, Paul. Thank you so much for joining me. This was a ton of fun. Hopefully, we can do a round two at some point because I have a lot more questions, and I'm sure the
No,
listeners do too. So,
well, it's been a pleasure. Well, and congratulations for taking doubles seriously, which a lot of people do not, including some tournament directors. And it's a fundamental part of the game. It's what most club people play most of the time. As you get older, my age, doubles is a lot easier and a lot of fun and so social. So thank you for um, showcasing doubles. And I've been lucky enough to be associated with the number one. The player has been number one in doubles for a long, long time at various times in her career, and it is unique and it's completely different from singles. And women's doubles are completely different from men's doubles. I'll give you one last
mhm.
thing, was that I was helping Sue-wei and Peng Shui, and they lost in the Australian Open. They lost in the semi-finals early on in their career before they won the French and Wimbledon. And I was having a bit of a heart-to-heart with Pang about her role in the doubles, and she wasn't quite buying into it. And I said something, and she goes, Paul, you only played men's doubles, so how would you know anything about women's doubles? I go, okay, Pang, okay, too good. But we worked it out, and they did okay.
That's so good. Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Paul. These are some great stories, some good strategy
And keep up
advice.
the good work, Will.
Thank
Really
you.
keep up the good work, and for your listeners who love doubles, yeah, it's a fundamental sport, part of the sport, and it must never disappear from the tour or anywhere else. Okay, thank you.
Yeah. Thank you. Have a good grass season.
Thank you.
If you want to become a smarter doubles player and start winning more matches, then join the Tennis Tribe Doubles Strategy newsletter. Every single Thursday, I'll send you a new doubles tip or tactic that you can use in your very next match. And when you join, you're going to get a free guide on how to play with more confidence and start dominating at the net in doubles. My name's Will. I'm the founder of the Tennis Tribe, and over the last 5 years, I've worked with players at every level of the game, from USTA 3.0 players all the way to Division I college programs, as well as some of the top 10 doubles players in the world. And on Thursdays, with this strategy newsletter, I share that knowledge and advice that I've gained over the years with you. So to sign up, you can go to thetennistribe.com. And again, you'll get that free net play guide when you join.